Okay, so you know how we thought things were finally calming down with all the TikTok stuff?
Yeah.
Well, surprise, another headline pops up.
It really does feel like it's been going on forever.
It does.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, I'm getting a little tired of hearing about it.
Oh, yeah, a little bit of news fatigue is totally understandable with this whole thing. It's been dragging on for so long.
But here's the thing. This latest twist with the 75-day extension,
Hmm.
I mean, it could really change things for TikTok,
Hmm.
especially if you use the app every day.
Right. It might be worth pushing past the fatigue for this one. This is a pretty big deal.
It is. The big news is President Trump went on Truth Social, basically giving TikTok another pass.
Yeah.
So the deadline that was April 5th of next year got pushed back all the way to June 19th, 2025. It feels like we've been here before, but what does this really mean for you, for the app you might have on your phone? That's what we're going to dive deep into today. We've been looking at all the latest updates and analyses, trying to find the most important parts, the real takeaways, to give you a clearer picture of what could happen next, not just for TikTok users, but for the tech world, even the bigger picture globally.
Yeah, to really get why this extension matters, we should probably take a quick step back. For anyone who hasn't been following every detail,
Uh,
or just needs a little reminder because there's been so much information,
right.
the whole TikTok issue really comes down to who owns it, which is ByteDance, this company based in China. And then you have its crazy popularity here in the US. I mean, we're talking something like 170 million users. That's a huge chunk of the American population.
And the biggest worry that keeps coming up from Washington is national security.
Hmm.
They're concerned about the Chinese government getting access to all that user data, spying, even trying to influence what you and other Americans see on the app. It got so serious that Congress gave TikTok a pretty strong ultimatum. Sell the app to an American company or get banned in the U.S.
Exactly. And that original deadline for the sale was January 19th of next year. But obviously that date came and went. There was already an extension back in February. And it's actually interesting that Trump was involved in that one too.
Huh.
And remember when TikTok reappeared in app stores after being gone for a bit?
Yeah.
I think that caught a lot of people off guard.
Hmm.
So this new 75-day extension,
Right.
it really feels like another chapter in a story that just keeps going.
Okay, so let's get into this latest move. Trump's announcement on Truth Social was pretty clear.
Mhm.
He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that his administration's been working really hard to make a deal happen that would save TikTok. And they've made tremendous progress. Now, that phrase, tremendous progress,
Right.
it sounds a little familiar, doesn't it?
It
It's been
does.
used for a lot of things that, well, haven't exactly happened.
Yeah, maybe take that with a grain of salt for now.
Probably a good idea. But even so, it does seem like something shifted, or at least that's the impression they want to give. How do you see this extension playing out politically, especially when you think about younger voters? TikTok is huge with that group.
Oh, definitely. An outright ban could really backfire. I mean, you can imagine the political strategists looking at the numbers and thinking we can't afford to lose those voters.
It's a big risk.
Huge.
So beyond just votes, what else could be going on here? Could TikTok's future be tied to these bigger negotiations the U.S. is having with China?
That's totally possible. You know how intertwined global trade and tech have become?
Hmm.
It wouldn't be surprising if TikTok gets caught up in all that, whether it's trade talks or even other political goals. This delay might be a way to buy some time to gain leverage in other areas, or just to try and figure out this really complicated situation. It might not be about a sudden breakthrough, but more about making careful moves when the stakes are so high.
And that brings us to the question everyone's asking. If a deal does happen, who's going to be the one buying TikTok?
Hmm?
We've heard so many names thrown around. It's hard to keep track.
It really is. Remember those talks with Oracle and Walmart back in 2020?
Feels like forever ago.
It does. But
Yeah.
their names are still in the mix. And then you have Walmart showing interest again. Now that Amazon seems to be checking things out too, it makes you wonder what they see in TikTok.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, especially Amazon. They could be thinking about how to reach all those TikTok users, to
Mhm.
tap into that whole content-driven shopping thing that's so big on the app.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's just about not letting their competitors get ahead. It's a competitive market.
And there's this new TikTok idea that keep popping up.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty complicated financial move, creating a whole new TikTok company based in the U.S. Can you break that down for us? What would that actually mean for people using the app?
Okay, so imagine there's this separate TikTok company, totally independent based, right here in the United States.
Mm.
The American investors who already have money in ByteDance, TikTok's parent company. They'd basically move their investments into this new company. And to make it even more separate from ByteDance and to, address those security concerns, we're talking about bringing in new investors, big names like Oracle and Blackstone, maybe even Walmart. They'd put in a lot of money. The whole goal is to shrink ByteDance's ownership so American investors would have more control.
That sounds like it might satisfy the government.
Yeah.
But here's a big question. The thing that really makes TikTok is the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
That's why so many people keep scrolling. It gives you that personalized feed. If ByteDance still controls that algorithm, even if it's through some licensing deal with this new TikTok, does that really solve the security problem?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it shows just how complicated this whole situation is. TikTok's algorithm is like its secret weapon. It's what keeps people engaged and keeps them coming back for more. This analyst, Kelsey Chickering from Forrester, she said it perfectly. TikTok without its algorithm is like Harry Potter without his wand. It's just not as powerful. And that's what everyone's worried about. Even with American owners, if ByteDance still has a say in how the algorithm works, there's still a chance for data to be messed with or for China to have influence.
And from a user's perspective, think about it. If this new TikTok comes out, but the algorithm is different or weaker, is it even the same app anymore? Would people still use it?
That's a good point.
You mentioned Vine earlier, and I think that's a good comparison. People loved Vine, but when it shut down, nothing really replaced it. There wasn't another app that had those same short, addictive videos perfectly tailored to you. A TikTok without its algorithm could easily become just another forgotten app.
It's definitely a risk. So we have this new deadline, June 19th, and there's still so much uncertainty for users. Will the sale actually go through? Will the government decide it's not enough and just ban TikTok, or will we get another extension? Because it's just too hard to figure everything out by then.
And we can't forget about China in all this.
Oh, for sure.
ByteDance has said they need China's approval to sell TikTok's U.S. operations. And with how things are between the U.S. and China right now, that's a big obstacle. It just adds another layer of complication to an already messy situation.
Definitely. And if they do go for a ban, TikTok's probably going to fight back hard. They'll likely take it to court saying it's unconstitutional and pointing out the economic damage it would cause for the company, but also for all the users and creators who depend on TikTok. We'd probably see more hearings in Congress. And, the biggest reaction might come from the users themselves, especially younger people who use TikTok for everything, from entertainment to connecting with friends to even making money.
So looking at everything, what do you think? What are the chances TikTok survives here in the U.S. in a way that users would recognize?
Well, it's impossible to know for sure. But looking at everything that's happening, it seems more likely that TikTok will stick around in some form. Maybe not exactly the same, but something close. You've got to consider the sheer number of users. It's hard to imagine 170 million people just suddenly switching to something else.
Yeah.
And then there's the money. The potential buyers are willing to pay billions. That means they see TikTok as a real investment, even with all the challenges. And remember, President Trump wants to save TikTok. He said so publicly. It seems like he'd rather make a deal than ban the app outright.
So to recap, we have another extension. Buyers are still talking with some familiar names, plus maybe Amazon. The algorithm is still the key ingredient, but also a potential problem. And even with this delay, the future is still up in the air. It feels like we're just waiting to see what happens.
Exactly. A ban's not completely off the table, but it seems more likely that they'll restructure things or sell TikTok in a way that lets it keep running here in the U.S. At least in theory, it would address those security concerns without making a huge part of the American public mad.
And that brings us to something for you to think about. Even after this deep dive is done, TikTok's algorithm is what makes it so successful. It's how it keeps your attention. How much control should any company have over the information you see and the things you spend your time on?
That's a big one.
This question is bigger than just TikTok. It's about who owns your data, how to keep things secure in our digital world, and the huge power these platforms have to shape what we think and experience. It's definitely something to keep in mind as this story keeps unfolding.
I agree. It's something we all need to be thinking about.
Definitely. All right, well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Hope you found this insightful. As always, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.
See you then.